Okay, let's dive straight into this stack of sources you've shared. We're tackling something um, incredibly familiar, yet deeply frustrating for many English learners. Understanding fast-spoken English.
It really can feel like a wall, can it? You've likely experienced this. You're trying to follow a quick chat, maybe watch a movie, or just listen to native speakers.
And it just sounds completely different.
Yeah, totally different from the clear, separated words you might have learned or seen written down.
Absolutely. Like the words are in your vocabulary, but the sound just, it doesn't match up, does it?
Exactly. So we've dug into a bunch of articles and videos that kind of peel back the layers on why this happens.
And crucially, what you can actually do about it, how to bridge that gap.
Right. Our mission here is really to pull out the core insights. We want to explore the, honestly, genuinely surprising reasons why fast English sounds the way it does, and give you the most effective strategies the sources recommend for, honing your listening ear.
And here's where it gets really interesting and honestly a bit of an aha moment from the sources.
Yeah.
You're going to discover why even native speakers sometimes struggle to understand fast English and what that tells us about how the language actually functions in real-time conversation.
That's such a key point. That surprising fact about native speakers, it really hits the core problem. One source described this test.
Okay.
Where native speakers heard only certain words from a fast sentence completely out of context. The result. Often they had no clue what the original sentence was. Seriously.
Wow. So even their brains can't isolate those sounds once they're pulled out of the flow.
Pretty much.
That tells you it's not just about speed then. It's about how the sounds fundamentally change when words are spoken together naturally.
Exactly right. Spoken English isn't just, written words read aloud, perfectly separated. Words warp and transform in connected speech.
Okay.
And one of the biggest culprits, reductions.
Reductions.
Yeah.
Meaning not every single word is pronounced clearly and fully, like they get shrunk down.
Precisely. Some words are significantly shortened, especially the common ones. Think about what do you want?
Yeah.
In fast speech, that can easily collapse into something like what do you want?
What do you want? Wow.
Or the word to, which is everywhere, right? It's often reduced to a barely there quick blue sound. That's the schwa vowel.
Yeah, schwa, the sound of English relaxation.
It really is. And unstressed words are particularly susceptible to this reduction. They kind of become part of the rhythm rather than distinct beats.
Okay, so reductions make words shorter. But what about those tiny functional words, the ones we use all the time, like prepositions or auxiliary verbs? Do they just get quieter?
They do, but it's a specific kind of quietening called weak forms.
Weak forms.
These little words like to, for, of, and was, can they have special weak pronunciations? These are used when they aren't stressed in a sentence.
Right.
And yes, these often rely heavily on that schwa sound again.
So your brain might be expecting to hear the full word of, but it actually gets a quick uv or even just
Exactly.
That would be confusing if you're listening for the correct dictionary sound, wouldn't it?
Massively confusing. Listening for the full strong form when the quick weak form is being used is probably a major source of missed words for learners.
Yeah, I can see that. And then there are the sound mashups we know from writing, but happen even faster in speech. Contraction.
Right. Native speakers are constantly blending two words into one shorter sound. I am becomes I'm, you are becomes your, did not becomes did. Those are standard.
Sure, those are taught, but the sources highlight the more informal, everyday contractions that really trip people up in rapid speech. Like gonna for going to, wanna for want to, maybe trying for trying to, gimme kinda. Let me.
Oh yeah, kinda let me. For is not.
Right. And some are even more dialect specific, like apparently in the UK, in it can sound like, isn't it, for clarification.
That's a common one, yeah. Or how do you can sometimes sound like dear in certain fast contexts.
Dear. Okay, wow.
So if you're not used to hearing those combined sounds as like single units, it's incredibly hard to parse what's being said because they happen constantly and super quickly.
Okay, so words shrink, words get quiet, and words combine. But it's not just individual words changing, is it? The sources make a big point about how words don't stop and start neatly. They flow together.
Exactly. That's a huge piece. It's not isolated sounds. It's more like a continuous stream or one long sound.
One long sound.
Yeah, and this word linking or connected speech is perhaps the biggest reason why fast English is hard to understand. It makes it tough to even tell where one word ends and the next begins if you're not listening for the linking patterns.
So what are these linking patterns then? How does the sound actually move from one word to the next?
Well, the most common one is consonant to vowel linking.
Okay.
The final consonant sound of one word basically junks and connects directly to the starting vowel sound of the next word.
Like a sonic handoff. Or a bridge.
Precisely, a sound bridge. So, doggin sounds like doggin.
Doggin.
Doggin. Ha sounds like hava. One egg becomes one egg, and 5 eggs sounds like 5 eggs.
5 eggs, huh?
Your ear hears that final consonant sound attaching to the start of the next word.
That feels counterintuitive. You kind of expect a little break there.
Right. But the sources also note that sometimes small sounds are actually added just to smooth out the flow, especially between 2 vowel sounds.
Added. Like out of nowhere.
Yeah, like a little doughy sound might appear between the vowel and 2 and the vowel and eggs, making it sound like 2 eggs.
Wait, they just add sounds that aren't there in the spelling. That's wild.
They do it naturally, totally unconsciously. Or a Y sound between 3 and eggs. 3 eggs.
3 eggs. Okay.
And perhaps the most surprising one is the intrusive R. An R sound might be added, like in 4 eggs or saw a dog.
Even if there's no R in the spelling.
Exactly. This happens particularly in some non-rhotic accents, like many in the UK. It links, sounds like aw or to a following vowel just to make it flow better. Saw a dog.
Wow. So sounds are added, sounds are linked, but sounds can also just vanish, like disappear.
Yes. Conversely, sounds can be dropped when words link, especially consonants. The D in good day might disappear.
Good day, good day.
Yeah, or go and get it becomes go and get it. It just vanishes. In some UK accents, the H sound is frequently dropped in words like his or her when they're unstressed and linked. So in his room becomes in is room.
In is room. So you're navigating this soundscape where things shrink, merge, suddenly appear, and disappear. No wonder relying purely on individual word recognition is like doomed to fail with fast English.
Absolutely. It's just not how it works. But this leads us to the next big piece from the sources. How do we understand the overall meaning even with all these sound changes? Because we do, right?
Yeah, usually.
It's not just about processing individual sounds.
Right. Our brains aren't just deciphering a stream of altered sounds. They're listening for something else, aren't they?
Yeah.
Something bigger.
Yes. A critical element is sentence stress.
Why? Stress.
In English sentences, certain words carry the main meaning. Typically the nouns, the main verbs, adjectives, adverbs, these are the stressed words.
The important ones.
Exactly. They're spoken louder, maybe longer, and definitely clearer. All those other little functional words we talked about, they're often the ones getting reduced or linked.
So the stressed words are kind of like the anchor points in the sentence.
Yeah.
The ones you grab onto.
Precisely. Think about that classic example. I think your English is great.
Okay.
If you stress I think your English is great, it subtly means you're the one who thinks it, maybe others don't.
Right.
Stress, I think your English is great, implies it's your opinion, maybe you're not totally certain.
Mm.
Stress, I think your English is great, focuses on whose English it is. Stress English, I think your English is great, focuses on the language, maybe comparing it to something else.
That's fascinating how just the stress shifts the whole nuance. So learning to pick out those stressed words is really key.
It's vital, absolutely vital. Even if you miss some of the smaller, reduced words in between, catching the stressed keywords helps you get the main idea, the gist of the sentence. Native speakers do this automatically without thinking.
And the melody of the sentence matters too, right? The intonation, the rise and fall of the voice.
Absolutely. Intonation adds this whole other layer of meaning beyond the words themselves. It tells you if someone is surprised or maybe being sarcastic, asking a question, versus making a firm statement.
Yeah.
Paying attention to this vocal tone, the music of the speech, provides crucial context about the speaker's attitude and intention.
Okay, so we listen for stressed words and the melody, the intonation. But if words are merging and changing so much, how do we quickly make sense of longer phrases or common expressions?
Yeah, good question. The sources highlight that native speakers don't actually process everything word by individual word, especially not common phrases.
No, how then?
They recognize and use language in chunks.
Chunks, like blocks of sound.
Kind of, yeah. Common phrases or expressions that function as single units, think, have a good day, or how's it going? Or even common grammatical structures like, I'd like to, I should have, can you?
Ah, okay. So it's like recognizing a familiar tune instead of having to identify every single note individually.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Training your ear to recognize these common sound patterns, these chunks or musical phrases, can dramatically speed up your comprehension. You're processing a whole unit, not trying to assemble meaning from tiny, individual, potentially reduced sounds.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And finally, the safety net, context.
Yes, always context. Even when words are reduced or linked almost beyond recognition on their own, the surrounding words in the sentence usually provide the necessary context to figure out what must have been said.
Right. Your brain fills in the gaps based on what makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly. Plus, natural conversation is rarely perfectly grammatical or complete sentences anyway. Following the speaker's overall train of thought, and even nonverbal cues, like gestures, if you can see them, helps fill in the blanks too.
So putting it all together, understanding fast English isn't really about hearing every distinct word perfectly. Yeah. It's about decoding this complex interplay of reductions, linking, stress, intonation, these chunks, and using context.
Wow, it's a lot.
That's a lot to process. Yeah. So what do the sources actually say you can do to get better at it? How do you practice this?
Well, it starts with a fundamental shift in mindset, moving from just passive hearing, letting sounds wash over you, to active listening.
Active listening?
Yeah, engaging your brain, consciously trying to process and interpret meaning, not just perceive sound.
And how do you even begin that? Where do you start?
The sources strongly emphasize exposure and diversity. You need significant exposure to natural spoken English.
Natural, meaning not textbook recordings.
Right. It means going beyond maybe just carefully scripted material like formal lectures or some news broadcasts, which are often slower and clearer deliberately.
Okay, so more. Real talk, like podcasts and stuff.
Exactly. Explore unscripted sources, podcasts on topics you genuinely like, reality shows, chat shows, movies with authentic dialogue, even music lyrics. These sources have more natural conversational English. You get the hesitations, the slang, different paces, lots of different accents. This trains your ear to be much more flexible and adaptable.
And actually talking to people, is that helpful?
Incredibly effective. Interacting with real speakers, whether it's through language exchange partners, online lessons, whatever, that's gold.
Why is that?
Because you're exposed to authentic real-time speech patterns, accents, and pace in a situation where you have to understand to respond. It forces active listening. You can even proactively seek out speakers with accents or speeds you find particularly challenging.
Okay, so exposure is key. Get lots of varied input. But what about more focused, intentional practice?
Yeah, the sources definitely cover that. One suggestion is to become a bit of a sound detective. Learn the mechanics we discussed.
Get nerdy about it.
Kind of. Study reductions, weak forms, contractions, the linking rules. Understand the schwa sound. Listen for stress patterns. Become genuinely curious about how these sounds are formed and changed in real speech.
And then, oddly, the advice is to practice making these sounds yourself. That seems counterintuitive for listening.
It does, but it works. Practice producing them. Mimic native speakers. Try saying linked phrases or reduced words out loud. One fun suggestion was to sing sentences to really get that continuous linked flow.
Sing them, okay?
The idea is understanding how your own mouth and tongue would make the sound helps your ear recognize it much faster when others do it. It's this powerful connection between production and reception.
That's a great tip. And there's specific active listening techniques too, right? Like exercises you can do.
Absolutely. A very effective one mentioned is transcription practice.
Writing down what you hear.
Yeah. Listen to a short audio clip, maybe a sentence or two at normal speed. Then maybe play it slower if you need to. Try to write down exactly what you hear.
Okay.
Then compare your transcription to a real transcript of the audio. This ruthlessly shows you exactly what sounds you missed and why. Maybe you didn't catch a reduction or a linking sound or a weak form.
Ooh, that sounds challenging, but really revealing.
It is. You can also do intensive listening where you focus only on picking out the stressed words in a sentence. Or practice just repeating common chunks over and over until the sound pattern feels totally natural.
Those sound like targeted workouts for your ears.
They really are. And the final piece of advice, maybe the most important, is consistency.
Keep at it.
Make listening a habit. Use idle time your commute. When you're cleaning, exercising, stick some English audio on, even short. Regular bursts are way better than infrequent, long cramming sessions. And as you improve, gradually challenge yourself with faster or more complex material. Don't stay in the comfort zone.
And are there any pitfalls to avoid? Things that seem helpful but aren't?
Yeah, the sources specifically warn against relying too heavily on English subtitles while you're trying to practice listening.
Oh, what's that?
Because they train your reading skills, not your auditory processing. Your brain defaults to reading, and your ears switch off a bit. Use transcripts to check afterwards, but not during the listening itself.
Good point.
And obviously, keep building your vocabulary across diverse topics. The more words you know, the more anchor points you have, even in fast speech.
And what if you feel overwhelmed, like it's just too hard?
Remember, it's a journey, it's a process. Everyone struggles with this initially, even people who are quite advanced in reading or writing. Struggling is completely normal.
Okay.
It just means your ear is still learning to decode all these nuances we've talked about. Don't get discouraged. Perseverance and consistent practice are absolutely key. You will get better.
So wrapping up this deep dive then, the big takeaway really seems to be that understanding fast English isn't about trying to hear every single word perfectly, like it might look on a page.
Not at all.
It's about retraining your ear to recognize and interpret the patterns of this musical language. You know, the reductions, the weak forms, the contractions, the way sounds link together.
The rhythm of stress and intonation.
Yeah.
Recognizing language in chunks.
And using context to fill in the inevitable gaps. It's a whole different way of listening.
It's a fundamental shift, really, from focusing on individual bricks to understanding the structure and the flow of the entire wall of sound. And the key to unlocking it is that consistent, diverse exposure and the active practice that specifically targets these features of natural, connected speech.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Considering how much the actual sounds of words transform and link together in natural speech, what does this suggest about the fundamental nature of language itself? Is it maybe less about distinct, separate building blocks and more like a continuous fluid melody or rhythm that we just learn to interpret over time?
And maybe think about this too. When you start to grasp not just the words, but that rhythm, the stress, and that continuous flow of sound, how much richer and deeper does your understanding of the actual message become? That's something fascinating to ponder as you continue your own listening journey.